The night Calum Voss rejected his Luna, the great hall was cold. Not from the season. The fires burned high on either side of the stone floor. Warm light moved across the faces of every wolf in Ironvale who had gathered to witness what their king was about to do. They came because they were summoned. They stayed because they understood, even before he spoke, that something was ending. Seraphine stood in the center of the hall. She had dressed simply. She always dressed simply. No heavy jewelry, no formal crown, because she had always believed that what she carried inside her was enough. 3 years as Luna. 3 years of learning every name in the pack, sitting beside the injured, mediating disputes that could have become something worse. She had loved this place. She had loved this man. She still did. That was the part nobody warned her about. Calum did not look at her when he spoke. He looked somewhere above her head, the way people look when they have rehearsed something so many times that the words no longer require a face to deliver them. "The bond between us is dissolved," he said. "By my authority as Alpha King of Ironvale, and in the interest of this pack's future, I name Seraphine Ashwood no longer Luna of this territory." Someone in the crowd made a small sound. It was quickly swallowed. He continued. Said something about alliance, about the Eastern clans, about a new intended, a woman of proper Alpha descent who would bring strength to Ironvale's borders. Said something about how the decision was not personal. Seraphine heard the words. She processed them. But her body was already reacting to what her mind was still refusing. The bond break came like a hand reaching into her chest and closing around something vital. Not pain exactly, deeper than pain. Like losing a color. Like waking up one morning and realizing you can no longer remember the sound of your mother's voice. She did not cry in the hall. She stood straight, looked at Calum one time. He did not look back, and then she walked to the doors. They opened for her. She walked through them. They closed. That was the last time anyone in Ironvale saw Seraphine Ashwood for 3 years. The outer territories in winter are not forgiving. She spent the first 2 weeks unable to shift. The bond break had disrupted something deep in her wolf. Her other half went quiet in a way that frightened her more than the cold did. She survived on instinct, on stubbornness, on a kind of anger that hadn't fully formed yet but was building slowly beneath the grief, the way stone builds under pressure. On the 15th night, her wolf came back. Not gently, not with warmth. Her wolf came back like something that had been underwater too long and had finally broken the surface. Seraphine shifted in a field of snow under a sky full of stars and ran for 2 hours without stopping, and when she finally slowed and sat in the dark and felt the wolf settle inside her like a stone into still water, she understood something. Her wolf was not broken. Her wolf was furious. And that fury, it turned out, was an extraordinary fuel. She found the borderland settlement by accident in the 3rd week, a collection of wolves who answered to no Alpha King, who lived in the wild territories by choice, who trained under a system older than any current monarchy. They were not soft. They did not ask why she had come. They watched her for 3 days before their leader, a gray-haired woman named Odra, who was missing 2 fingers and moved like someone who had forgotten how to be afraid, sat beside her at the fire and said, without introduction, "You have a gift you have never been allowed to use." Seraphine looked at her. "How would you know that?" "Because broken women who arrive at our border in the dark do not usually look the way you look," Odra said. "Most of them look afraid. You look like something that just remembered what it is." Seraphine stayed. She trained for a year under Odra's instruction before she was introduced to the wider network, a loose coalition of packs in the outer territories who called themselves the Free Packs. They were independent. They were old. They were, Seraphine quickly understood, far more powerful than Ironvale's court had ever acknowledged or bothered to know. She learned to fight with a discipline she had never been given access to inside Ironvale's walls. She learned territory law, pack diplomacy, the old language of wolf hierarchy that predated any current king's claim to authority. She discovered, with the particular shock of something you have always suspected but never permitted yourself to believe, that she was exceptional. Not ordinary exceptional, not good for a non-alpha exceptional. Exceptional. The discovery arrived in pieces. Her wolf, now fully awake and wholly her own, was powerful in a way that other wolves felt before they understood. When she ran with the coalition packs, older wolves moved aside, not from politeness, from something older than choice. It was Odra who finally told her the truth. Odra was dying, she knew it, and said so the same way she said most things, directly, without decoration. She called Seraphine to her, and took her hand, and told her about the Ashwood bloodline, the oldest wolf lineage in recorded history, predating every current Alpha dynasty by centuries. Seraphine's mother had carried it, her mother's mother before that. The line had been deliberately hidden after an old war, marked as common, stripped of its records, buried in the kind of careful forgetting that only happens when powerful people are afraid of something. They hid you, Odra said, so no one would come for you before you were ready. Seraphine sat with that for a long time. I wasn't ready, she finally said. Odra looked at her with the calm of someone who had already seen how the story ended. You are now. Odra passed away 11 days later. Seraphine remained through the burial, helped carry the body, sat through the entire 3-day mourning rite according to Free Pack tradition. Then she went back to training. The blood trial happened in the second year. It was the oldest test in the Free Pack system, a formal challenge of endurance, strength, and strategy run across 3 days in open wilderness. No rest periods, no assistance, no mercy. The last woman to complete it had done so 200 years ago. The other candidates were larger than Seraphine, more experienced in raw combat terms, more confident going in. She finished first. Not by a narrow margin. After that, the packs talked. Word traveled the way it does in wolf communities. Fast, precise, without exaggeration because wolves respected accuracy. They said that Seraphine Ashwood of the Outer Territories had a wolf, unlike anything the current generation had encountered. They said she was fair, quietly terrifying. That she negotiated with the same precision she fought with. That she never raised her voice because she never needed to. By the end of year 2, 6 packs had approached her formally. Not to seek her allegiance, to offer theirs. The ancient council of the Free Packs convened in the 3rd year. 14 pack leaders from across the Outer Territories and the borderlands, seated in a circle, no hierarchy of position. Seraphine stood in the center of that circle and answered their questions for 4 hours. At the end, they voted. The title of Wolf Queen had not been held since the age of the ancients. It was not an honorary position. It carried formal authority over every Free Pack territory, the power to ratify or reject interpack treaties and, most significantly, the right to approach any alpha monarchy on the continent as an equal sovereign. The vote was unanimous. Seraphine did not celebrate. She accepted the crown with the same quiet she had carried through the worst of the border winters, and the trial, and the long nights, when the grief sat on her chest like something with weight. Then she turned west. Ironvale, in her absence, had not thrived. Calem's political marriage had gone exactly as the elders had planned, and exactly as it deserved, which is to say, it achieved nothing. His new queen held the title but not the pack's respect. She was not unkind. She was simply not Seraphine, and the pack, whether they admitted it openly or felt it in the quiet way wolves feel things, knew the difference. The council that had pushed for the rejection now argued among themselves about whose strategy had been correct. The eastern border pressure had not resolved with the alliance marriage. If anything, the eastern clans had grown more aggressive, sensing instability. Calem ran his kingdom with discipline and absolute efficiency, and a heaviness that his court pretended not to notice. He had made a calculation 3 years ago. He had believed it was correct. He had spent 3 years continuing to believe it was correct, because the alternative, that he had destroyed the best thing in his life for a political maneuver that had not even worked, was a thought his pride refused to sit inside for very long. He heard the news about the Wolf Queen from 3 different sources in the same week. Her name reached him in the way names reach kings, filtered, formal, slightly delayed. But when his 3rd informant placed a treaty letter on his desk, and he recognized the seal at the bottom, something happened to the room. It seemed smaller than it had been a moment ago. The air seemed to rearrange itself. He read the letter twice. Then he called his council. Seraphine arrived at Ironvale's border on a clear morning, with an honor guard of 12 and treaty documents from 6 allied packs in a leather case at her side. She did not arrive quietly. A wolf queen's arrival is not meant to be quiet. It is meant to be seen. The border wolves who came to meet her were young, none of them old enough to remember her face from before. They knew her title before they knew her name. They brought her to the great hall with the careful ceremony of people who understood they were in the presence of something that outranked everything they had been trained to defer to. The great hall was the same stone, same fires, same cold when there was no warmth to fill it. Calum was standing when she entered, not seated at the throne, standing, which she noted and filed away without expression. Around him, his council, some faces she recognized. The elders who had called her bloodline insufficient sat in their chairs and did not speak. She crossed the room and stopped at the appropriate diplomatic distance. She let the silence run for 3 seconds longer than comfortable. "Alpha King," she said. Her voice was the same, quiet, clear, the kind of voice that carried without effort. Calum looked at her. His wolf hit the recognition before he did. She saw it in the slight tension of his jaw, the stillness that came over him. Whatever his pride had spent 3 years constructing around the memory of her, his wolf was not inside that construction. His wolf knew exactly what it was standing in front of. "Wolf Queen," he said. His voice held. She gave him credit for that. She laid out the terms of the Free Pack Coalition Treaty with precision and no warmth. Ironvale could join the coalition. Full membership, protected borders, trade access, the strongest network of allied packs on the continent. Or it could stand alone, as it had been standing for 3 years, while the Eastern pressure continued to build, and the Council continued to argue, and the pack continued to feel the slow erosion of stability that no amount of royal ceremony could disguise. The Council murmured, calculated. One of the elders, the oldest one, who had spoken the loudest 3 years ago about bloodline and suitability, opened his mouth. Seraphine looked at him. He closed it. She waited. Calum found her that evening in the corridor outside the East Wing, a hall she had walked 1,000 times when she lived here, when she had believed this place was home, and the man inside it was worth building a life beside. He came alone. No guard, no formality. "I knew about your bloodline," he said. He did not ease into it. She had always respected that about him, even now. "One of my informants brought the information to me 4 months before the rejection. I chose not to tell you. I convinced myself it was irrelevant to the decision." She was quiet. Let him finish. "The elders threatened to dissolve 3 key border treaties if I kept you as Luna. They said the packs would not accept a queen of unknown descent. I believed them. I chose the pack." He paused. "I have not stopped choosing the pack a day in my life. It is the only thing I am certain I am allowed to choose without catastrophic consequences. But that night, I have turned it over every way a decision can be turned over. And I cannot make it come out correctly." Seraphine looked at him for a moment. "You told me it wasn't personal," she said. "I know. That was the part that stayed," she said. "Not the bond break. Not the politics. That you looked at 3 years and called it impersonal." She paused. "I spent a long time being angry about that." "Past tense?" he asked. "Mostly," she said, which was honest. She told him about the bond, that it had not died, only gone dormant. That she had learned to live above it rather than inside it. That she was not the woman who had walked out of these doors 3 years ago, and she did not intend to be her again. And any future that included him would need to understand that as its foundation, not its negotiation. He accepted every one of her conditions, without revision. She looked at him for a long moment. "We begin slowly," she said. "However you decide," he said. She nodded once. Then she walked back toward the great hall, where the treaty documents waited on the long table, and the council sat in their seats, and the fires burned steady against the stone. She sat at the head of the table, not beside it, at the head. She opened the first document. She began,